Shalom, Israel, Shalom, Shalom. Brother Naquam watching for Israel coming back at you with these precepts and another Monday Night Fire, giving, of course, our honor and our glory to Yahweh by Shema Mashiach Kumalak Yahushai, double honors to the elect elders of the house of David that's been in his truth for decades and decades, patiently waiting for the second coming of Mashiach Kumalak Yahushai. A hearty, mighty Shalom to all of the mighty men of the Most High God who are out there in the highways and byways, pushing this truth, magnifying the ministry, presenting their body as a living sacrifice, and enduring all things for the elect's sake. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to all of the men that may not be out there in the highways and byways as of yet, but they're working on it. They're getting built up in the spirit. They're praying, they're fasting, they're studying, they're being diligent and abounding in the work of the Lord. Shalom, shalom. Shalom to all of the Akwaf out there, the sincere sisters out there, holding it down in the households, reverencing their husbands, being submissive and diligent, and moving in the spirit of our righteous foremother. Shalom, shalom. And shalom to everybody tuning in live. Divine in Nature, LLC, Angelo, Shalom King, K Paradise, Shirashiye, Salakia, butchering the name. All right, daughter of Zion, Salome Williams, Quadash, Zion, WFI Seattle, Shalom King, Hasha Yahawada, Joshua Brew, Shalom, from Egypt to Israel, WFI St. Louis, Eliezer Ben Judah, and everybody else tuning in, and that will tune in, Lord willing. The Feast of Tabernacles draws nigh, right? The Feast of Tabernacles draws nigh. This is the raw truth about the Feast of Tabernacles. Right, I repeat, this is the raw truth about the Feast of Tabernacles. For those who have been following the calendar through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashmi Yahushai and rehearsing the righteous acts, the Feast of Tabernacles draws nigh, right? So that would be September 28th at sundown, right? The Feast of Tabernacles draws nigh September 28th at sundown, which would be Thursday night at sundown. That is the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles, right? So we're going to kind of cover what the raw truth is, right? Because I'm hearing a lot of people saying I'm going camping, or I can't wait for a camp trip, right? It sounds like it's going to be a great day camping. I can't wait to get around the bonfire and, roast some marshmallows and, say spooky stories. And this is not that. All right, we got to know how to separate the truth from the world. This is not camping, man. Right? This is not hanging around and making s'mores and taking Hershey's and marshmallows and just freaking off, man. Right? That is of the world. So we want to cover what the truth is about the Feast of Tabernacles, how to keep it, what it's about, the secrets behind it, the dark sayings of it, right? The plainness of it. And we're going to kind of dive into it and see it through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashmer Shah. We can kind of touch every angle, right? So let's dive right into it. I want to see if I can pull this up on the screen first and foremost, right? Let's pull this up on the screen. Let's go into, right, bear with me. Get rid of this, right? The book of Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, right? Let's dive right into it, right? So, this may be a lot of brothers' first Feast of Tabernacles too. As we did the WFI marathon for the Day of Atonement, this is a lot of people said that was their first Day of Atonement. They never kept it before. They didn't know how to go about it. That was their first time, putting their right foot forward, and they went through it. They did a great job through the spirit, and they came out strong, right? Again, this is the first Feast of Tabernacles for a lot of individuals. So we have to kind of cover exactly what this means, right? And this is one of the most major high holy days. Remember, in Deuteronomy chapter 16 and 16, there were 3 major high holy days commanded by Yahweh Bashmer that required the men to appear in Jerusalem, right? This is Deuteronomy chapter 16 and 16. 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God, in the place which he shall choose, in the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles. And they shall not appear before Yahweh empty. So these were, and you had other major high holy days, right? Remember, you had Purim, right? You got the Feast of Dedication, you got the destruction of Nicanor, right? You have the memorial blowing of the trumpets, right? You have major feast days and the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, right? But within these 3 major feast days, you had to go to Jerusalem. No ifs, ands, or buts. And you have to appear before the Lord with your sacrifices and appear before Yahweh Bashem Yahushua with your due offering. You had to go to Jerusalem. Now you can say, well, I don't feel like going. It's too far. Well, hey, you had to deal with it, right? You had to deal with it. So the Feast of Tabernacles is one of the major high holy days. So it's not optional, right? It wasn't optional then. It's not optional now. All right. So let's go back to this in Leviticus chapter 23, right? Because you got brothers saying, well, I don't feel like doing that, right? That's burdensome, right? I don't want to, make a tent. I don't want to kind of get into it, right? It's too much. Well, you got to get into this thing, man. You're supposed to have zeal through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, man. You should get excited about these things. Again, like we always say, Jake, you was excited about Halloween, Thanksgiving, Columbus Day. If you was into that, right? Sinmas, so-called New Year's. You got all into these worldly days, man. These are holy days. And you got to have that zeal. You got to be marking that calendar down. I know brothers, they already put in their days at the plantation. Look, I'm off these days, man. It's the Feast of Tabernacles. So-called supervisor, well, can you please? No, I'm not coming in. Well, we really need you. You would be a great, look, I put my hours in, right? I'm not coming in. I took my PTO. I scheduled my vacation. I got my hours off. I'm going to use my bereavement. I'm using my unpaid time. Hey, look, it's the Feast of Tabernacles coming in, right? So let's read this, Leviticus chapter 23 and 33. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of this 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto the Lord. Right? And we'll cover the Feast of Tabernacles as we read on. The word tabernacle means booth, right? Or a tent. Remember, in the ancient world, our fathers didn't dwell in mansions. They didn't have mobile homes, as in like these trailers, right? They didn't live in an apartment complex. Abraham he wasn't in the ghetto, man, right? Job didn't live in uptown. Our forefathers lived in these tabernacles, or they dwelt in booths. They dwelt in tents. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, even our fathers that dwelt in the wilderness. When we came out of Egypt, we dwelt in the wilderness for 40 years and we dwelt in booths. So we're going to kind of cover why. Because remember, every high holy day has a spiritual meaning behind it, right? Every high holy day has a spiritual meaning behind it. You can't just keep these days and, like I said, just chalk it up to just going camping, right? This is Romans 7:14, right? The classic. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. So the Feast of Tabernacles is a very spiritual feast day, feast week. And there's a lot to meditate and consider as you prep and get ready for the Feast of Tabernacles. You have to think about our fathers in the wilderness, right? You have to dwell on the spirits that were there, the spirits of murmuring, the spirits of rebellion, the spirits of idolatry, the spirits of not being patient, right? Scoffing, wickedness, the spirits of 2 men who wholly followed the Lord, Joshua and Caleb. So there's a lot to kind of, you really want to dwell on as you get ready for the Feast of Tabernacles, right? You want to dwell on the concept of the booths and what the booths mean to us on a spiritual level. The law is very spiritual, but we are carnal, sold under sin. Even though we're in the flesh, and even though the Most High programmed us, for lack of better terms, to go off, and the grain of evil seed was sown in the mind of Adam from the beginning, that doesn't negate our connection to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua and these feast days on a spiritual level. We can still perceive what these days mean for us on a deeper level and the practicality of it as you look into it from a spiritual lens. Right? Let's go to Psalm chapter 119. Right? This is Psalm chapter 119 and verse 18. Right? Psalm chapter 119 and 18. Open thou mine eyes, that I may behold wondrous things out of thy law. So when you dive into the law, this is a petition or a prayer to the Most High that any one of us can say at any given time. It's one thing to just open the Bible and just flip through the pages and say, today I feel like reading this. And you just land on the book of Nahum. Right? Well, I guess today's book of the Bible, according to my app, it's telling me to read the book of Acts. And you just kind of read it to read it. Some brothers read just to say they read. Right? Oh, yeah, I read X amount of chapters, but they didn't even dive into the spirit or apply what they are reading. Now, before you dive into the law and before you dive into the scriptures, it's a beautiful thing to ask the Most High to open your eyes. Now you can say, well, my eyes are already open. I already know what's going on. I got it figured out. Oh, okay, brother, that's fine. If that's you, that's fine. Right? But for everybody else, the Lord said, open thou mine eyes. David said that. Remember, David was a king, and the kings had to be experts in the law. They were experts in war, experts in judgment, and experts in the law. That was three main factors to be a king, right? Now, the Lord said, open thou mine eyes that I may behold wondrous things out of thy law. Because the law can become wondrous to you when you read it and you meditate on it and you dwell on it, man. And we're going to kind of talk about the wondrous things out of the law. So the law says the 15th day of the 7th month. That would be so-called this month, September 28th at sundown. All right, September 28th at sundown will be the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles. Verse 35. On the first day shall be an holy convocation. They shall do no servile work therein. So the first day is the Sabbath, right? That's what it's saying. You can't do any servile work. What is servile work? Servile work is work that puts a service, right? You have people that clean pools. That's a service, right? You have people that clean people's houses like maids and butlers. That's a service. People that cut grass and do lawn care. That's a service. You cannot do work for hire on that day, right? That is servile work. No servile work. Every work isn't the same. That's why the Most High says no servile work therein, because there is a level of work that can be done on this day, but it cannot be work where you receive payment or you receive any type of materialistic things in exchange for a service. So now, with that being said, the work that can be done is the work that goes into this feast day, right? It may be animals to be sacrificed in the ancient world, booths being set up, right? The trees being cut down to be able to take the boughs from the palm trees and the boughs from the goodly trees. Right now, in today's time, you're setting up your tent, right? These are the things, this is the work that can be done. But if you decide on September 28th at sundown to say, hey, look, I'm the type of person where I cut grass, or I do lawn care, whatever, I'm going to do that on that day. Well, now you violated it because you did servile work, and it's a holy convocation, right? Meaning you're commanded to gather together. Right, let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 36 and 11, if you can. I know a lot of brothers, you live, you by yourself, you don't have anybody, you're millions of miles away, or so you say, but you have to make a sincere effort. It's one thing to say, well, I'm all alone, and it's another thing to say I'm all alone and not look into it. Because you can say you're all alone and you find out, a lot of brothers say that, and they oh, I'm the only Israelite. You ask, brother, where you live? Oh, I'm in New York City. Well, hold on, brother. There's a plethora of camps in New York City. Brother said he all alone. Yeah, I'm in Baltimore. I stay right by the harbor. Ain't nobody around. I've been in this thing. Brother, what do you mean? We go out there faithfully, brother. Every Friday, every Saturday, and sometimes Sunday, by the grace of the Most High, right? So you're commanded to gather together, right, and make an effort. Right? Make an effort, man. Right, Jake? You went all out of your way to do wickedness in the world. You stayed up late to freak off. You traveled miles and miles to see Rochelle and Keisha and Tammy and Tamika. You traveled to concerts and festivals, and you went out of state and out of town and sometimes out of the country to engage in lewdness and vanity. You have to make that effort with these feast days, man. That's part of the work. It's part of great works. It's part of making your body a living sacrifice, right? Not just saying, well, I can't do it. It is what it is. What does the scripture say? Right? Before I go to that, let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 9. Right? Before we talk about it, let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 9. This Ecclesiastes chapter 9 and 10. Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might, for there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave whither thou goest. So whatever you put your hand to, you got to go 1,000% at it. If you keep in the Feast of Tabernacles, it ain't just, oh, well, I'll just, just figure this thing out when it comes. No, you got to get into it. You got to make sure you got everything you need. And if you can go outside, you're going outside. You're making sure you got the right tools, right? You got the right supplies. You got the right packing list. You got a nice size tent, and you're able to endure the elements. You do it with your might, right? I remember the first tabernacles I kept. I couldn't go outside, man. My situation was slightly different, right? But it got to the point where I could do that, man, by the grace of the Most High. So, and you got to make that effort. You got to make that effort. So whatever you put your hand to do it with your might. Why? Because you can't do it in the grave. How many men are keeping the Feast of Tabernacles in the grave? Right? It's not happening, man. So you got to do this thing now while you're alive. Do it while you can now, man. Ain't no woulda, shoulda, couldas. Are you in Jacob's trouble? You're a pilgrim on the earth. Oh, man, I wish I would have kept the Feast of Tabernacles. I should have just went out there that one time. I heard the brothers was keeping it out there. I heard, and it's a lot of congregations that are openly invite you, man. Right? They will openly invite you to the Feast of Tabernacles. Salaki, bear with me. They will openly invite you, and just show that brotherly love. So you have to do everything with all your might. All right. This let's go back to Ecclesiastes, right? Because this goes into having a holy convocation. Ecclesiastes chapter 30. Salaki, bear with me. Chapter 36 and 11. Gather all the tribes of Jacob together and inherit thou them as from the beginning. You see that? So this is part of a prayer. When you read Ecclesiastes, this is really the 36th chapter, 1 through 17, if I'm not mistaken. Right? This is a prayer really for the enemies or against the enemies of Israel. Right? Against the enemies of Israel. And part of the prayer against the enemies of Israel is to gather the tribes together. Right? Each one of these things are judgments to these other nations. When you read Ecclesiastes chapter 36, right? You read about the Most High. Let's kind of jump up to 7 real quick. Right? Let's jump up to 7. Right? I want to read that. Right? Bear with me. Right? I want to read that through the spirit and power of Yahushua. Right? This Ecclesiastes 36 and 7. Raise up indignation and pour out wrath. Take away the adversary and destroy the enemy. So these are judgments, and these are statutes and requests and petitions against the enemies, against the Edomites, the Moabites, the Hamites, the Ammonites, the Girgashites. Right? It reads, make the time short, remember the covenant, and let them declare thy wonderful works. Meaning, hurry up and get rid of their kingdom. Remember the covenant and the promises, right? That the people may declare thy wonderful works. Let him that escapeth be consumed by the rage of the fire, and let them perish that oppress the people. And these things are, these aren't nice things to ask for. These are to these nations, man. This is horrible judgments, terrible things, wrath of the Most High. You want them to be consumed by fire. You want them to have 3rd-degree burns, nuclear missile burns, nuclear wind, right? The Lord said, let them perish that oppress the people. Smite and sunder the heads of the rulers of the heathen that say there is none other but we. Meaning smite their head, chop their head off. All of these things are violent things against these nations. And one of the things that's against these nations are the tribes gathering together. So even though we're praying for the destruction, we know that it's a threat too for the tribes to come together. Gather all the tribes of Jacob together and inherit thou them as from the beginning. So as brothers come together, that's really an answer to the prayers of a lot of Israelites, right? These holy convocations, these feast days, these holy gatherings really are the answer to a prayer, to the prayers of a lot of brothers and sisters in this truth, man. Right? So that's why you have to have a holy convocation, right? You have to come together in righteousness. That's for the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles, right? It reads, 7 days ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. On the 8th day shall be an holy convocation unto you, and ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. It is a solemn assembly, and ye shall do no servile work therein. So the feast day lasts 8 days. Now, in the ancient world, we would have these offerings done 7 days. Now, can you do physical offerings now? No, right? You don't have a temple. You don't have an altar. We don't have the priest to execute those offerings. All right. And on the 8th day, we have a holy convocation. So the first day is a Sabbath, and the 8th day is a Sabbath. The 8th day is also a solemn assembly, right? And ye shall do no servile work therein. Let's go into this word solemn. So you got to be mindful of this, right? These are the ordinances of the Feast of Tabernacles. So right now we're kind of touching the surface level. We'll kind of dive deeper into it, right? So let's go into this word solemn, right? The Lord said it is a solemn assembly. Okay, solemn assembly, a sacred or festive meeting, right? Let's go to the, just get the regular definition. Okay, solemn. A solemn, it means dignified, ceremonious, ceremonial, majestic, serious, grave, right? Somber, unsmiling. So it's a heavier day, right? It's a heavier day. That 8th day is, when you read the book of John, the 7th chapter, is called the last great day of the feast. So you close out the Feast of Tabernacles in an extremely mighty, glorious fashion, right? And you're supposed to keep that, right? That's part of the law. So let's go back to Leviticus chapter 23. And we'll touch on John the 7th chapter because, you know, John the 7th chapter actually goes into the Feast of Tabernacles, you know? So let's read on. Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 30. I'll read 36 again. 7 days ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. On the 8th day shall be an holy convocation unto you, and ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. It is a solemn assembly, and ye shall do no servile work therein. These are the feasts of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, to offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord, a burnt offering, and a meat offering, a sacrifice, and drink offerings, everything upon his day, because each day of the Feast of Tabernacles required a particular sacrifice. You know, and if you want to read more about those sacrifices, you can read the book of Numbers, the 29th chapter, right? So you read about when you want to read the feast days, how to keep them, and the ordinances and the statutes thereof, you read Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, right? A lot of these feast days are also in the book of Deuteronomy, right? You read them in the 16th chapter. And you'll also, if you want to know about the sacrificial ordinances, then you go to the book of Numbers, the 29th chapter, and it goes into the offerings of these feast days. Even Numbers 28 goes into offerings on a Shabbat and the daily offering. So those two chapters coupled together go into the sacrifices for the high days and the high holy days. All right. Verse 38. Leviticus 23 and 38. Beside the Sabbaths of the Lord, and beside your gifts, and beside all your vows, and beside all your free will offerings, which ye give unto the Lord. Also, and now he's about to go into the Feast of Tabernacles again. So when you read Leviticus chapter 23 and you read verse 34 on down, really 34 through 38. It goes into a general analysis, for lack of better terms, of the high holy day. And then when you get to verse 39, it goes into the specifics. It becomes a little more granular on how to keep this feast day and what it's kind of going into on a physical, practical level, right? So this Leviticus chapter 23 and 39. Also, in the 15th day of the 7th month, that's still the so-called Thursday night at sundown, September 28th at sundown, right? Also, in the 15th day of the 7th month, when ye have gathered in the fruit of the land, they shall keep a feast unto the Lord 7 days. On the first day shall be a Sabbath, and on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath. You see that? So, like I went into earlier, the first day is a Shabbat, and the 8th day is a Shabbat. And ye shall take you on the first day the boughs of goodly trees, branches of palm trees, and the boughs of thick trees, and willows of the brook, and ye shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days. And they actually had to do this, man. Right? They would go out there and get these trees and take an axe and chop them down. They had to build this thing. They wasn't ordering the tent off of Amazon. Right? They wasn't going to Walmart or Dick's Sporting Goods or wherever and buying the tent. They had to actually build this thing, man. From the ground up. And they knew how to do it. It was part of our heritage, right? It wasn't a big deal. We kind of knew these things, man. Our fathers taught us, and their fathers after them, and we know how to take the palm tree and take that bow and kind of make a tent and stand it up, and we had this thing figured out. We didn't have an instruction manual from IKEA, right? So on that first day, you got to set your tent up, right? You got to set your tent up on that first day. Now you can say, well, look, I'm going to set my tent up on the 8th day. Okay, well, that's off. All right? You set it up when Yahushua told you to set it up. You don't just, do what you want to do. Right? It reads, and ye shall keep it a feast unto the Lord 7 days in the year. It should be a statute forever in your generations. Ye shall celebrate it in the 7th month. Ye shall dwell in booths 7 days. All that are Israelites born shall dwell in booths. So if you're an Israelite and you were born, you got to dwell in a booth. You got to dwell in a tent. Right? Now, if you're not an Israelite and you're an Edomite, don't worry about it. If you're a Moabite, don't worry about it, man. If you're a Hamite and you're watching this, I mean, you can do whatever you was doing, man. But guess what? If you're Yasha'Allah, you will dwell in a booth. Now, you may say, well, look, I don't have a tent. Right? I don't know, I don't have my money not right. I stay with my folks, or I got this going on. And you can make a tent, man. Right? You can make a tent. Right? I know brothers, they hook that sheet and they take it back old school. They put the sheet right there. They take a sheet right there. They put it over the mattress. They put it that, and they kind of do their thing. Right? I mean, really, there's no excuse. Even if you can't go outside, you got brothers that stay in apartment complexes. Right? They might have different living situations. Their car might not be like that. Their funds might be tight. You can still keep the Feast of Tabernacles. There's really no excuse. You better get them sheets together, right? And get into this thing, man. You got to get into it, right? Set that thing up and kind of, make your booth, right? You got to make your booth. Right? It reads, that's why we read into Ecclesiastes 9 and 10, and whatsoever thou puttest thy hand to do it with all your might. All right? That's part of the law. Let's go to, we're going to link up Ecclesiastes 9 and 10 with Deuteronomy chapter 6 and 5. Right? It's Deuteronomy chapter 6 and 5. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. So you got to put your whole heart into this thing, man. You can't half step the feast day like I keep talking about. What does it mean, all thine heart? Meaning all your focus, all your attention, all of your effort, all of your meditation. You're going to love the Most High and keep the commandments and go hard when it's time to keep them. And with all your soul, meaning you're going to give your whole spirit into it. Right? You're going to give 1,000%. This is part of the law. You're commanded to give 1,000%. Again, these commandments are more than, like we always say, it's not just, okay, grow your beard out, don't eat pork, okay, keep the Sabbath. All right, that's it. If you violate Deuteronomy 6 and 5, I mean, that's a sin. If you have steps serving the Most High, it's a transgression. You know? So you got to ask yourself, in these feast days, and in all these days, are you doing it with all thine heart, or half of your heart, or a quarter of your heart, or you're not even putting your heart into it, man? You know, your head is in, you're thinking about the big sports game, right? You're just waiting for this. You're just hurry up and rushing the Feast of Tabernacles to go by. Come on, just hurry up and get these 7-8 days over with, man. Come on, I got stuff I got to do. All right, you're in your tent, you're mad. Why do I have to do this? This is dumb. Well, if that's your mentality, your mind is bad, right? Your spirit ain't right. Right? It reads, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart. So you got to take these words and put it in your mind, right? And go hard when you build your tent, when you dwell in your booth, right? When you keep these feast days, right? You have to go in the spirit and power of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. Right, let's read this again. Leviticus chapter 23, right, and verse 42. Ye shall dwell in booths 7 days. All that are Israelites born shall dwell in booths. So if you say Kwam Yashala, or Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, or Yahweh B'Shem Hamashiach Yahushai, or you greet your fellow brethren with Shalom and Shalom, and you sound from the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, Levi, Ephraim, Manasseh, Asher, Gad, Naphtali, Issachar, and on and on. If you kind of say you from those tribes, then you got to be in the booth. No ifs, ands, or buts. That your Leviticus 23 and 43, that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am Yahweh, your God. And Moses declared unto the children of Israel the feast of the Lord. You see that? So the Feast of Tabernacles is the 15th day of the 7th month, right? The 15th day of the 7th month. Now, going into the Feast of Tabernacles, you're also going to know that this feast day will take place in the kingdom, right? Let me kind of touch on that, right? Let's go to Zechariah 14. It's not just a one-time deal, because if it's burdensome to you now, right, then, I mean, what are you going to do in the kingdom? These feast days are going to still take place when Yahushua sits upon his throne, right? You're going to have to keep these ordinances. So if you don't accept it and get right with it now, then it's going to be part of the new covenant, and it's going to be in your inward parts. That is Zechariah chapter 14 and 16. And this shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, right? The Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. So what does this mean, everyone that is left? Why would if the Lord came to save everybody, why is he saying everyone that is left? I thought the Lord came to deliver mankind, save the human race, just bring peace. What does this mean, everyone that is left? Right? Well, everyone that's left is everybody didn't kill. Right? Yeah, we said it. It's everyone that Yahushua didn't kill. That's everyone that's left amongst these other nations. He's going to kill so many people, then you have people kind of left over. The leftovers are the Edomites and the Moabites and the Ishmaelites and the Japhites and the Hamites. They're going to have to keep these feast days. You think these other nations are going to just do whatever they want to do? Right, let's go to Daniel chapter 7 real quick. The Lord said, yet they had the dominion taken away, but their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. All right, this is Daniel chapter 7 and verse, let's start at 11. Daniel chapter 7 and 11. I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake. I beheld even to the beast was slain, and his body destroyed, and given to the burning flame. What beast is that? The eagle. Your modern day Roman Empire, right? Your modern day Babylon the Great, mixed with NATO, or America's part of NATO. So it's NATO, the EU. That's that modern day beast. The body's going to be destroyed and given to the burning flame. As concerning the rest of the beast, meaning what? All those the other nations. All right. Those are the rest of the beast. When you read this chapter, you read about the Babylonians, the Medes, the Persians, the Greeks, and the Romans. Right. So you're going to have a remnant of the Edomites left. You're going to have a remnant of the people of the Babylonians left. Right. Those Cushites, Chaldeans, the Assyrians, Syrians, right? The Elamites and the Ishmaelites from the Medes and the Persians. Right. Those Hamites. Those are the rest of the beast. As concerning the rest of the beast, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. So Esau is going to be completely burnt up out of rulership. The other nations aren't going to be exterminated. All it is their dominion is going to be taken away. They're going to receive judgment, and their lives are going to be prolonged for a season and a time. And during this season and time, they will be forced to keep the high holy days, to keep the Shabbat, keep the new moon, right? And right now we're talking about they're going to be forced to keep the Feast of Tabernacles during that season and the time. That's speaking of that season and time is speaking about from the time that the rulership is taken away until forever. All right. So let's go to Zechariah chapter 14 again. Actually, let me get one more on these nations. Right? This is Revelation chapter 9 and verse, I believe on 20. Right? Revelation chapter 9 and 20. And the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands, that they should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and of wood, which neither can see nor hear nor walk. So what is this saying? Let's read it again. Revelation chapter 9 and 20. And the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not. So these are the other nations. Everybody that wasn't destroyed by the ICBM missiles and the chariots, they're still not going to repent for putting you in captivity. There's still going to be no remorse, even though their cities will be burned with fire. Their children will be dashed to pieces. Their wives will become widows. They still will not repent. So why are you trying to save these nations, man? They're not going to repent. They're not going to get right. Even when the plagues come, the missiles hit. That they should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and of wood, which neither can see nor hear nor walk. Neither repented they of their murders. So you're saying no justice, no peace. We want them to receive, judgment for what they have done to what's his name, Rasheem Carter, Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, Philando Castile, Tamir Rice, right, Ahmaud Arbery, right, Emmett Till, and you want them to pay for it and apologize. You want reparations. You want your 40 acres and a mule. You want them to say, "Look, we're sorry." What did the Mosai say? Neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries. Right? You got these people going to these schools. This mother, she ripping off the flag, the rainbow flag. You got this Jake going before the community, reading the lewd book, telling them this book doesn't need to be in my school. This is sorcery. It's madness. They're not going to repent. They kicked that guy out of the town hall meeting or whatever that was, man. They're not going to repent of their sorcery, nor of their fornications, right? Nor of their thefts. That's why they have to go into captivity. These are the remnant of the nations that are going to be left. That's the everyone that is left. The everyone that is left is everybody that the Most High didn't kill. that we have to put in captivity. Right? Let's read it one more time. And this shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem, and read Psalms 83. Read about all the nations that came against Jerusalem. Read Psalms chapter 2. Read Lamentations 2. Right? Shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Now they can be mad. I don't feel like keeping the Feast of Tabernacles. I ain't going up this year. I went last year. It wasn't even like that. What's the big deal? And we hear you, if you hear you nations, man, and we hear y'all murmuring, complaining, I ain't keeping the Feast of Tabernacles. I ain't going this year. You're gonna have to see. We're gonna be able to hear you while you living in your ghettos. Because you're gonna be in the ghettos, you're gonna be in the projects, you're gonna be in the field. You're gonna be riding on horseback, listening. We're gonna have that spiritual power. Right? And if our ears start tingling, right? And we hear you say, well, I ain't keeping the Feast of Tabernacles, man. I ain't really getting down. I'm gonna do my own thing this year. Okay, what's going to happen? Let's figure out what's going to happen if you don't want to keep the Feast of Tabernacles, right? And it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. So they won't get no rain. Now you may say, well, what does that mean? It's only rain. Well, rain lets the grass grow, the trees grow. If you don't have no rain, you don't have no food. They ain't gonna have no big McDonald's and Chick-fil-A in the kingdom. If they don't have no rain, that means their animals won't be able to eat. Their trees won't be able to bear fruit. Their wells won't have any water. Their cisterns. And they're going to die of thirst and die of a famine. People are going to get sick. Diseases. Cannibalism is going to happen. Fights and tumults. It's going to put a spirit on the people, man. When they don't have any rain. And if the family of Egypt go not up and come not, that have no rain. There should be one plague wherewith the Lord will smite the heathen that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. So if you Egyptians don't come up, we're going to know about it, right? This shall be the punishment of Egypt and the punishment of all nations that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. So it's not just a one-time deal, man. It's not just on this side of the world. It's also going to be in the kingdom. Everybody's going to have to come up and keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And we're going to have to dwell in booths. Remember, we read, all that are Israelite born shall dwell in booths. Again, what is a booth? A tent. Let's pull up a biblical tent. Right? Let's pull this up. Here's a tent, right? In the ancient world. Right? Here's a tent. That's like what the tabernacle may have looked like. Here's what like an ancient tent would have looked like. They were bigger than your Walmart tents, right? It's a good one right here. And we had to dwell in booths. Remember we had big families, man. It wasn't just like what they called it, a teepee. I believe that's what they called it, right? Let's pull this up, teepee. Most I didn't have us dwelling in teepees, man, in the wilderness. We had sons and daughters and large families, man. Now, Gad kind of dwelt in tabernacles. These are smaller, smaller tents that they had, which shows that they're still Israel. They dwelt in booths, right? Now, when you go back to, and not just Gad, Reuben, a lot of the tribes dwelt in booths. This more so of a larger biblical tent. Right, here's a few of them. See that? So that's more of a biblical tent. And they had the thick, like animal skin over it, so it could deal with the rain. The wind wouldn't blow it. This was heavy duty. This thing wasn't just blowing away in the night, right? This was a big deal, man. You didn't have a bear just come up and claw the tent. They couldn't get in this. You couldn't just pierce this thing. Now, this tent is that we dwelt in was a temporary residence for us in the wilderness, right? And Yahweh, by Shema Shai, as we dwelt in the wilderness, he sustained us, right? With food, water, you understand? Quails, right? The Lord said our garments wax not old and our feet swell not. So we were sustained in his booths. Now, on a spiritual level, right? Let's go to the book of First Peter, right? Chapter 1, right? Actually, let's go to Second Corinthians 5. Now I want to go to First Peter 1. All right. So I want to get this precept in Second Corinthians 5. I'm gonna start at 1. Right. This is Second Corinthians chapter 5, and there's another precept I'm gonna get as well. Second Corinthians chapter 5 and 1. So we're going to talk about the tabernacle on a spiritual level, right? So Second Peter, it's like your Second Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 1. For we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved, we have a building of God and a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. So you have a tabernacle that you're dwelling in literally right now, right? The tabernacle that you're literally dwelling in is your body. Your spirit dwells inside the tabernacle. That the fleshly body that Yahweh Bashmi created is likened unto a tabernacle. That's what you call the similitude. What are the similarities between the human body or the Israelite body and the tabernacle? Right? It's the Most High compares the Israelite body to many things, or man to many things, right? Trees, due to man taking root and bearing fruit. Man is likened unto grass due to his frail lifespan that he lives. He lives, 70 years, sometimes 80. Man or a group of men, a nation, they're likened unto the waters that never rest, right? Man is likened unto a beast. David says, so foolish was I, and ignorant, I was as a beast before thee. Paraphrasing Psalms chapter 73. So there are many similitudes that Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushua uses when he deals with man. Another similitude he deals with is a tabernacle. So a tabernacle is temporary. A tabernacle can be blown away, can be destroyed. A tabernacle is not immortal. A tabernacle can just be burned, right? So we're likened to tabernacles due to our vulnerability in the flesh. We're likely to be destroyed, right? We have a frail life, and this is a temporary residence. That's the main thing. So your spirit dwells in a tabernacle. Now, in the ancient world, we dwelt in the wilderness for 40 years. 40 years we dwelt in the wilderness, right? Now you only had 2 men. Let's go to the book of Hebrews, right? You only had 2 men that made it out. Who are the 2 men that made it out? Joshua and Caleb. Now you said, well, hold on. Well, didn't Moses? Well, what about Moses? Well, Moses didn't make it out, right? He didn't make it out, man. As sad it is to say, he even asked to see, can he go in the Most High? And he told him, hey, look, hey, stop asking me about this, man. And it is what it is. Aaron died on the mount, and they went and kind of stripped him of his garments. Miriam died, man. A lot of people didn't make it. Everybody didn't make it except the generation that was younger and Joshua and Caleb. Now, this is Hebrews chapter 4 and verse 1. Let us therefore fear, lest a promise being left us of entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it, right? Let's like it, for unto us was the gospel preached as well as unto them. But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith and them that heard it. So what does this mean? For unto us was the gospel preached as well as unto them. Who's the them? The them are our forefathers in the wilderness. They received the gospel too. The gospel is not, just and this time now when brothers go to camp and preach the gospel. The gospel goes back to the ancient times. Yahushua or Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua was with our fathers in the wilderness, telling us the good news. What was the gospel at that time? Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 28. Right? Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 28 and 1. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and 1. Right? And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations, Salakia, of the earth. And all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. This is the gospel, right? This is part of that gospel. And this is just one account when you read Deuteronomy 28, Deuteronomy chapter 30, right? A lot of other, Exodus 24. There are many chapters that speak about the promises that we heard of in the wilderness and what the Most High would do for us, right? Exodus chapter 23, right? There are many commandments and promises, and all of that is the gospel. Our forefathers heard glad tidings. Another word for a gospel is glad tidings, good news, a great message. Deuteronomy 28 covers that. It tells you all of the promises that will happen to us, all of the blessings. Right? And part of the gospel, the Lord said he hath anointed me to preach good tidings to the meek, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, right? To open the prisoners that are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord and the day of vengeance of our God, man. So both of those go into that gospel, the spirit of glad tidings, of deliverance and blessings. So this is why it says in Hebrews chapter 4, for unto us was the gospel preached as well as unto them. So they got the gospel. We got the gospel, right? But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith and them that heard it. So they received the word. Moses preached the word to them, meaning our forefathers in the wilderness, but it didn't profit them because they didn't believe. They were in the wilderness, dwelling in tabernacles, and they did not believe, and they died in faith. That's why they murmured and scoffed. Will the Lord please give us water? Could the Lord get water out of the rock? Oh, with God, that the Most High would take us back into Egypt, where we had leeks and melons and cucumbers and garlic and just cooning, man. Trying to go back into the captivity. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 3, right? Let's go to Hebrews chapter 3. This is Hebrews chapter 3 and verse, this whole chapter is, I'm going to start at 14. For we are made partakers of Hamashiach, if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast unto the end. While it is said, today if ye will hear his voice, harden not your hearts as in the provocation. The provocation is when we provoke the Most High in the wilderness. We dwelt in tabernacles. When you look up the camp of Israel, you had hundreds and thousands of tents. And we dwelt in those tabernacles. But yet we hardened our heart when we dwelt in those tabernacles, when we were in the wilderness. Remember, we put up a camp of Israel not too long ago. Right? So let's pull this up. This is the camp of Israel in the wilderness. So you can kind of get a visual. Actually, I want to kind of get something like this. See that? So this is how we marched in the wilderness. Right? You had all of these tribes. And you had the tabernacle right there. And you had lesser tabernacles. Let's get a better picture. So these are all tabernacles. That's a good one right there. Right? So you had 3 tribes northward, 3 tribes southward, 3 tribes eastward, and 3 tribes westward. And in the middle, you had the Levitical families. You have the Kohathites, the Merarites, the Gershonites. And in the very middle, you had the high priest, right? And the other priests in Moses. And then the center, you had Yahuwah Shai. And there was a huge chariot over us where the Lord was in, and he would lead us in the wilderness. This is how we march. And we dwelt in these booths, and our fathers didn't believe. This was our military formation, right? This was our military formation back then, right? Now, when you go back to Hebrews chapter 3, it reads, while it is said today, if ye will hear his voice, harden not your hearts as in a provocation. Now, back then we dwelt in booths, and like we're going into in 2 Corinthians 5, now you dwell in a booth. But the only difference is you don't dwell in a physical tent. Your body is now a booth, and you still are in the wilderness. You may not be in the wilderness of ancient Egypt, but you're in the wilderness of modern day Egypt, right? We always go into that. This is a modern day wilderness, a thirsty land, a land without any living water, a land of cruel beasts and dragons and serpents, of blazing heat, right? And no shade. This captivity is a modern day wilderness as you dwell in your modern day booth. All right. So let's read this again. While it is said today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts as in the provocation. For some, when they had heard, did provoke. Howbeit not all that came out of Egypt by Moses. Because you had Joshua and Caleb, that didn't provoke. But with whom was he grieved 40 years? Was it not with them that had sinned, whose carcasses fell in the wilderness? And you're going to have brothers that die in this wilderness, right? Those that sin, you're going to die in the wilderness. Our fathers dwelt in booths and died in the wilderness. You dwell in your modern day tabernacle, and you dwell in modern day Egypt, right? You dwell in this modern day wilderness. I'll put it like that. You dwell in a modern day wilderness, right? So let's get that. Let's go to the book of 2 Peter, chapter 1, right? This is 2 Peter, chapter 1 and 13. Yea, I think it meet, as long as I am in this tabernacle, to stir you up by putting you in remembrance. What did he mean, as long as I'm in this tabernacle? He wasn't talking about an actual tent. Talking about his body, right? That corruptible body, that temporary body. The tabernacle is spiritual for your temporary body. Like our fathers that dwelt in the booths, that was a temporary residence until they entered into the promised land where they would have houses and mansions in the kingdom. Likewise, when we're keeping the Feast of Tabernacles, we're not just thinking about dwelling in the booth. We're thinking about, hold on, our bodies are the booth. Our spirits are dwelling in the tabernacle. We're dwelling today in a modern day wilderness, and we're looking for a permanent residence. We're looking for immortality, the kingdom of heaven, a spiritual body. And we're mindful not to repeat the exact same mistakes that our fathers did in the wilderness where they died in their tabernacle. You don't want to die in your tabernacle. Korah died in his tabernacle. Dathan died in his tabernacle. Korah, Dathan, Abiram, he died in his tabernacle. You had murmur in their tabernacle. What are you doing in your tabernacle? Because the Lord, we read in Hebrews chapter 4, he killed, or Hebrews 3. Let's read it again. Right? Hebrews chapter 3 and 17. But with whom was he grieved 40 years? Was it not with them that had sinned, whose carcasses fell in the wilderness? So the Most High killed our fathers in their tabernacle. Again, let that not be us, right? That dwell in our modern day tabernacles, right? Shalom, King.
Shalom, King.
Shalom, shalom. Right? So this is 2 Peter chapter 1 and 13. It reads, yea, I think it meet, as long as I am in this tabernacle, to stir you up by putting you in remembrance. And that's what we're doing. We're in our modern day booth, our modern day corruptible body, this temporary residence, right? Putting our people in remembrance of the Feast of Tabernacles, of what this feast day is about. Again, it's not just, okay, I'm going camping. Okay, I got my knapsack and I got my vanilla wafers and I got my I don't know, my fishing pole, man. Right? It's more than that. Right? Let me read on. Knowing that shortly I must put off this my tabernacle, even as the Lord Yahushua HaMashiach has showed me. Right? Even as the Lord has showed me. So what does that mean? He will have to put off his tabernacle. It means the Lord, it's like Yahushua told Peter that he would be a martyr. When you read John chapter 21, remember he told him that he was going to be crucified. Right? He says, when you were young, you would gird yourself and go where thou wouldest. Paraphrasing. Right? Salakia. But when thou shalt be old, another shall carry thee where thou wouldest not. Right? So Yahushua told Peter he would have to stretch forth his hands and be crucified. That's why this means, knowing that shortly I must put off this my tabernacle, even as the Lord Yahushua HaMashiach has showed me. And every day you're in your tabernacle. And again, you don't want to, do the same things our fathers have done in the wilderness. Right? Let me get this screen up. You got it, King.
Khan, that's right. And I want to pull up this quick precept going into that. Right? This is the mighty book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 9 and verse 15. For the corruptible body presseth down the soul, and the earthly tabernacle weigheth down the mind that museth upon many things. It's not talking about a physical building. It's going to rest down upon your body. Your tabernacle is your body. And all of the thoughts that you may have is things going to be okay, worry, stress, anguish, thoughts about how to get things done. All of these things are going to weigh down your earthly tabernacle. It says, weigh down, right, the mind that museth upon many things. And hardly do we guess aright at the things that are upon the earth. And with labor do we find the things that are before us. And the things that are in heaven, who may search out. So the Lord is telling you all throughout the scriptures that our bodies are classified and looked at as tabernacles. Right, I'm going to get the class in the book of 1 Corinthians. Right, it's 1 Corinthians, right, chapter 3 and verse, I'm going to start at 16. And it reads, know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you. So when we literally going about our days, we have to realize that our bodies are not just, just of ourselves. We're bought with a price. The Lord owns this body. You can't just say, well, this is my body. It is what I'm going to do what I want to do with it. No, this is the Lord's temple. When you read Wisdom of Solomon, the first chapter, it tells you that. When you read Wisdom of Solomon, the 9th chapter, it tells you that. All throughout the scriptures, it tells you your body is a temple and your body is a tabernacle. It says, know ye not, meaning what you don't know, that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you. Meaning Yahushua is dwelling within our bodies, and we're able to offer up spiritual sacrifices, sacrifice of praise, sacrifice of a contrite heart. All of these different sacrifices we're able to make because we're priests. Right? You got it.
Kanye, that's right. That's right, man. And it's a beautiful feast day because a lot of our forefathers, or like we're going into all of them, except a few, right? The generation that was coming up, as well as Joshua and Caleb, they all gave up the ghost, man. Everybody except those group of people gave up the ghost, man. And they allowed the temptation to overthrow them in the wilderness, right? And that was really the main thing. They couldn't deal with the spiritual demon Satan when they were in their tabernacles, and they were overthrown, right? Let me get this in 1 Corinthians, the 10th chapter, right? This is 1 Corinthians chapter 10. The temptation got our fathers in the wilderness. That's why Yahushua showed you, hey, this can be done. The Most High showed you Yahushua can overthrow Satan in the wilderness, man. Something our forefathers couldn't do. Our forefathers couldn't defeat Satan in the wilderness, but Yahushua did, man. While Yahushua was fasting, and he did it 40 days and 40 nights, man. You've been in the wilderness for God knows how long, right? And you're constantly dealing with the temptation of Satan in your tabernacle. And those guys, they got caught up in that. You had the mixed multitude tempting Israel, man. They went a lusting, then Israel went a lusting. You have people murmuring, and other people got tempted and they start murmuring. I mean, temptation overthrew everybody, man. right? Let me get this in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 5. But with many of them, the Most High was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things were our examples, to the intent that we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted. Neither be ye idolaters, as were some of them. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed, and fell in one day 23,000. The Lord killed 23,000 men in one day. The Most High is merciful to men in the truth, man. You don't hear about 23,000 men falling away in one day. Right? Let's read on. It reads, neither let us tempt Hamashiach, as some of them also tempted and were destroyed of serpents. Neither murmur ye, as some of them also murmured and were destroyed of the destroyer. Here's the point. Now all these things happen unto them for ensamples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. So all these things happen for our learning, man. All of the temptation, wickedness was going on in those tabernacles, man. Who does Moses think that he is? Yeah, I'm Moses. Look at me. I'm pretending I'm Moses. Oh, here's the tables of stone. I can hear it all, man. Right? Look what Moses got on. Ain't supposed to be the priest. Ain't supposed to be somebody. He ain't even like that, man. Right? Look at this woman, man. Jake is carnal. Right? Jake is carnal, man. I would have been came down from that mountain. Right? I would have been down, man. He up there taking all day. Send me up there. If I was up there, then you have people kind of, you would have been up there. Yeah, I know. They kind of dapping each other up, man. Right? Freaking off on the fig juice and strong wine and strong drink, man. Right? So our fathers went off in the wilderness. Right? And you can't go off in the wilderness, man, in these booths. You got it, King.
Con, that's right. Right, because it's a lot of murmuring that goes on in your mind, and you gotta, man, fast that off, man, and pray to the Most High. Have a strong mentality. This is the book of Numbers, chapter 14 and verse 27. How long shall I bear with this evil congregation, which murmur against me? I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel, which they murmur against me. So the Lord said, how long in this wilderness am I going to bear hearing all of your groans, your secret chit-chats, your murmuring, your backbites, all of your evilness, or all of your hatred toward your brother? It says, say unto them, as truly as I live, saith the Lord, as ye have spoken in my ears, so will I do to you. He said, as ye have spoken in my ears. Did the children of Israel actually throw up a prayer to the Most High? Did they say, you know what, Most High? I hate this brother and I hate that brother. The Lord says, surely, and this is deep. It says, as truly as I live, saith the Lord, as ye have spoken in my ears, so will I do to you. I mean, all of that murmuring and backbiting and chit-chat and evilness, you're speaking it in the Most High's ears. The Most High hears everything. Now, you may not even say anything out loud. The Most High still hears you. It's not anything that can escape the Most High, even your thoughts, your range, your desires, right? Your emotions, your feelings, all of that, the Most High is beholding it all, right? Just the book of Wisdom of Solomon, right? Chapter 1 and verse number 8. Therefore, he that speaketh unrighteous things cannot be hid, neither shall vengeance, when it punisheth, pass by him. So you think you only get punished by smoking weed and fighting your brother physically, right, and robbing a brother, or these carnal things that you could physically touch, or carnal things, man. But the Most High is beholding spiritual things also. It says, for inquisition shall be made unto the counsel of the ungodly, and the sound of his words shall come unto the Lord for the manifestation of his wicked deeds. Meaning the manifestation of all your wicked thoughts, emotions, murmurings, and desires is going to be brought up before the Heavenly Father. Right, reading on from Numbers chapter 14 and 29. Your carcasses shall fall in the wilderness, and all that were numbered of you, according to your whole number, from 20 years old and upward, which have murmured against me. Doubtless ye shall not come into the land concerning which I swear to make you dwell therein, saith Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, the son of Nun. but your little ones, which he said should be a prey. And you're speaking down upon the little ones, but saying they're going to be a prey. But the Lord is receiving the little ones, right? On a deeper level, Yahushua said, when a man were asking who's going to be greatest in the kingdom, what did the Lord say? The little ones, paraphrasing, the children. You got to be converted and be like these children. The same way in the wilderness, the ones that were delivered were the righteous, you want along with the children that could be taught and brought up through the Spirit. It says, them will I bring in, and they shall know the land which ye have despised. You got it. You on mute, King.
I was saying that's a beautiful chapter, right? Let me get this in the book of Numbers, right? The 11th chapter, right? This is Numbers because we kind of talked about it. This Numbers chapter 11 and verse 1. It reads, and when the people complained, it displeased the Lord, and the Lord heard it, and his anger was kindled, and the fire of the Lord burnt among them and consumed them that were in the uttermost parts of the camp. And the people cried unto Moses. And when Moses prayed unto the Lord, the fire was quenched. So that link up, the brother was saying, it says the Lord heard it. That doesn't mean the Most High, he tapped the tents, man. Right? Put damn secret, damn wired, he wired the tents, and Moses had a wire on them, and he went back to the Most High and he took it out, and Moses got nervous because they was, they had to pat Moses down, and Moses said, I gotta go, and it wasn't none of that, man. Like what's that movie? In Too Deep, man. Remember the beginning of the movie, right? And then hey, look, it wasn't like that, man. So the Most High heard it because he got angels around. The Lord has angels, and the angels heard the people complain, right? And then you may have brothers that complain in their tabernacle, right? And I'm not talking about a righteous complaint. I'm talking about a wicked complaint, right? A wicked complaint, Lord, how come I don't have enough wisdom, right? Lord, why? How come I'm a Judite? Who do you think you are, Lord? That's wicked, man. You can't complain to the Most High, man. Oh, Lord, why do you just got me here in the man? What just bring about the kingdom? You think the Lord, can you really bring about the kingdom? Are you strong enough to take Esau down? Show me. That's evil, man. Asking the Most High to just show his hand. Show me you can take down the Moabites. And then you had everybody doing it, man. Right? Let me see thy power and thy great wrath. Right? If you have it. So that's what they was doing. They was complaining against the Most High, man. Speaking, and that's blasphemy. I got a hard time even saying that. It's so off, man. Right? It reads, and the Lord heard it, and his anger was kindled, man. So what is the Lord hearing about you? Where his anger may be kindled, man. Right? I mean, what kind of spirit are you in? Right? I just want to bring that up.
Right now, I got a precept on that. This Isaiah chapter 45 and verse 9. Woe unto him that striveth with his maker. Let the potsherd strive with the potsherd, and the earth shall the clay say to him that fashioned it, what makest thou? All thy work he have no hands. Woe unto him that saith to his father that begotteth thou, or to the woman, what hast thou brought forth? Thus saith the Lord, the Holy One of Israel, his maker, ask me of things to come concerning my son, and concerning the work of my hands, command ye me. So the Lord said, man, who are you talking to? Or who do you think you're approaching unto? I'm not man. Man, you could come to, man. You could talk to man. You could base man out. You could tell man his faults, his iniquities. You could tell man, he's in sin. You could get on man and reprove man, but you can't reprove the Most High. You can't scoff against the Most High. Everything the Most High does is perfect, whether you understand it or not. And a lot of things brothers don't understand. They equate that, to unjust dealings or wrongdoings, right? Let me get this quick precept. This is the book of Numbers, chapter 14 and verse 1. And all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried, and the people wept that night. And the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron. And the whole congregation said unto them, would God that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would God, and this is blaspheming the Lord's name now. Imagine that, man. Imagine you just saying, "Oh God, if God were," and then you just lifting up your voice, weeping and wailing and complaining. It says, I gotta read that again. It says, with God that we had died in the land of Egypt. That's off. Or with God that we had died in this wilderness. And wherefore hath the Lord brought us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and our children shall be a prey. Were it not better for us to return into Egypt? And that's that unbelief that you read about in the book of Hebrews. Because they didn't believe the Lord's true strength, and they didn't truly have faith. And through their unbelief, their murmuring, backbiting, and all of these spirits that they were drinking forth, the Lord had to do away with them and kill them. The Lord's looking for the faithful, them that are going to follow him. You understand? And the Lord asked the disciples to come out in the middle of the sea. Right. But you have to have faith in that. You can't murmur and say, I don't know about this one. Didn't the disciples murmur when the Lord was speaking spiritual things about eating bread, which was talking about his body, and drinking blood, but they couldn't receive it because it was too deep? But let me get that real fast. So you can murmur within yourself, and what does that murmuring cause you to do? It calls you to turn away from the Lord. You know, a dragon, 7 heads, 10 horns, we got to die for this truth. Then you start murmuring deep down within you, man. A lot of brothers enjoy this truth till they find out there's tribulation, there's fire. There's certain things that you have to go through the Spirit to receive everlasting life. Right? This is the book of John, chapter 6, and verse, right, number 54. I'm going to start at 53. Then Yahushua said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, except ye eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, ye have no life in you. Whosoever eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood have eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. For my flesh is meat indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He that eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood dwelleth in me, and I in him. As the living Father hath sent me, I by the Father, so he that eateth me, even he shall live by me. This is that bread which came down from heaven, not as your fathers did eat manna, and are dead, but like he that eateth this bread shall live forever. These things said he in the synagogue and taught in Capernaum. Many therefore of his disciples, when they heard this, said, This is a hard saying, who can hear it? All right, so they're receiving all of this in their mind and laying it up, and I don't know about this. This is kind of hard to receive. You know, eating bread, you know, eating flesh and drinking blood. It's kind of hard to really receive. Then Yahushua knew in himself that his disciples murmured at it. I mean, he could saw that, he could see their visage. You know, you may be talking to a brother, and that brother face kind of change up. Brother kind of looking off to the side, checking his watch. He don't know if it's really going to be what he's talking about. I got to take this phone call. Hey, let me call you right back. That's the spirit that they were in, and they were murmuring within themselves. Stop thinking murmuring means you got to cuss out the Most High in your head, man. No, these men were just simply going against what Yahushua said. That little bit of you going against any of these words, laws, statutes, commandments, any prophecy, any ordinance, any fire and tribulation that the Most High has for you, that's considered murmuring. It says his disciples murmured at it, and he said unto them, Do if this offend you. You got it.
Yeah, you think Yahushua had to ask him? Yahushua knew what he was doing, man. Right? When he said that this offend you, right? Hey, this thing ain't for everybody, man. Right? That's a good account right there. Right? Let me get this real quick. This is Numbers, right? Chapter 11 and verse. Actually, I want to go to John 7 real quick. Right? Let me get this real quick. This is John chapter 7 and verse 1. It reads, After these things, Yahushua walked in Galilee, for he would not walk in Jewry, because the Jews sought to kill him. So Yahushua couldn't show himself openly in Judea, right, or Jerusalem, because if pretty much they had a hit out for him. And you saw him, you got to kill him, right? That's man, we're not there yet, man. You see that brother, just kill him, man. So he was on low profile, right? It reads, Now the Jews' feast of Tabernacles was at hand. His brethren therefore said unto him, Depart hence and go into Judea, that thy disciples also may see the works that thou doest. For there is no man that doeth anything in secret, and he himself seeketh to be known openly. If thou do these things, show thyself to the world. You have them spirits they have to deal with, man. Right? Them spirits trying to hop on Yahushua, telling him to use his spiritual power for vainglory. Right? Saying, just show yourself to the world, put on a show, attract attention. Right? His brothers didn't believe in him, huh? Right? They thought this was some type of damn game. Right? It reads, for neither did his brethren believe in him. I'm gonna jump down to verse 8. Go ye up unto this feast. I go not up yet unto this feast, for my time is not yet full come. So even in John the 7th chapter, they're still keeping the feast. They're keeping the Feast of Tabernacles. And Yahushua, when you read this account, he preached at this feast, man. John the 7th chapter is a beautiful chapter about Yahushua preaching during the Feast of Tabernacles. Right? I'm gonna kind of jump down. Right now, this John, this whole chapter is good. Right? This is like John chapter 7 and verse 35. Then said the Jews among themselves, whither will he go, that we shall not find him? Will he go into the dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles? What matter of saying is this that he said, ye shall seek me and shall not find me, and where I am, thither ye cannot come. In the last day, that great day of the feast, Yahushua stood and cried, saying, if any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. He that believeth on me, as the scripture has said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. You see that? So even during the last day or the 8th day of the Feast of Tabernacles, Yahushua is preaching the word, and he's going into the living water. Right? He's going into the living water and breaking down the fact that if you believe in him, you'll receive the Holy Spirit, and out of your belly, meaning out of your mind. You had a group of brothers that said, no, that's talking about your actual belly. Right? They did, I think, like an hour and a half, hour 45-minute breakdown. And they went to all these precepts and they sat down. They had all of the books. They had all these books. Right? They had all of their books. They put their books down, right, in front of the big table. And they said, that's talking about your actual belly. It's not talking about your actual belly. Your belly can't just hold living water, man, and flow out. It's speaking about your mind. Your mind is your belly, ready to burst like new wine. And out of your belly is your mouth is like a conduit, and it shoots out the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. So also on the Feast of Tabernacles, you got a lot you got to think about. Like I said, it's not camping. Okay, I'm going camping, right? I need my graham crackers, right? And my s'mores, my Hershey Kisses, and my peppermints, my peppermint patties, right? If that's your mentality, then you're not really taking into account everything that happened during the Feast of Tabernacles, man. Nehemiah kept the Feast of Tabernacles, right? And it tells you that they dwelt in the streets, right? Yahushua kept the Feast of Tabernacles. But you got it, King Salaki.
Con. And if you're not keeping the Feast of Tabernacles, you're going off, right? You're committing sin. Now, with this disclaimer, I don't know if you touched on it, King. Everybody doesn't have, the means to be able to go out in the wilderness. Or are you going to get put to death if you don't go out physically in the wilderness? No, the Lord's going to have mercy on you. You have to rehearse the righteous acts. You want to try to your best ability. Right? You don't want to Walmart's closed. I guess I can't keep it. You're not planning ahead. You're not saving money. You're not being wise. You're not reading the scriptures. You're not knowing what it's about. You're not doing the righteous acts. You're just going about it like it's just a normal day. This is a very high holy day, man. Deuteronomy 16:16 tells you the 3 high holy days that you got to come up for Jerusalem for. That's a very high solemn day that the Most High has created. Coming out of Egypt, dwelling in the wilderness, sojourning, which is all spiritual of us right now through the Spirit, sojourning into the promised land. Right now, we are the tabernacles. And within the tabernacles, you have what? Temperatures, right? Sun. You got cold outside. You got creatures. right? Snakes, owls, eagles, all of these different things in the wilderness that we got to sojourn through as pilgrims upon the earth to receive the promise. Right? Let me get this quick precept. Just another precept going into tabernacles is man. Right? This is the book of Matthew, chapter 17, and verse number 1. It says, after 6 days, Yahushua taketh Peter, James, and John, his brother, and bringeth them up into the high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment as white as the light. And behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elijah, right, talking with them. Then answered Peter and said unto Yahushua, Lord, is it good for us to be here? If thou wilt, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah. So he's trying to make 3 physical tabernacles, right, for these men, not understanding that Yahushua is above them all. You got Moses, which is the law. You got Elijah, which represents the prophets. So you got man is classified as a tabernacle, and the tabernacle just means a dwelling place. Like when you read Psalms, the 83rd chapter, it shows you your enemies. The Lord said the tabernacles of Edom. Meaning all of their secret places where they sojourn, where they have councils, meetings, their minds, their philosophies, their doctrines, their courtrooms, all their tabernacles, all their dwelling places, and all of the things that come together as a nation, they are your main culprit as your enemy. So tabernacles is just deeper than a physical building with physical bricks and physical wood and physical lumber and things to bring together, right? It says, let me get this quick precept too, right? This is the book of Psalms, chapter 83, right? Salakia 63, going into the wilderness too. It's the book of Psalms, chapter 63 and verse 1. O God, thou art my God. Early will I seek thee. My soul thirsteth for thee. My flesh longeth for thee in a dry and thirsty land where no water is. Right now, predominantly all lands have somewhat of water. Right? This is not physical. He's talking about a spiritual place where there is no understanding, no light. And Job said that this place is a place of darkness, even as darkness is so. So Job called it dark. Right? David said it's a land with no water. All of this is all parabolic of this place called Babylon. Chiefly is throughout the whole earth, because there's nothing but wickedness throughout the 4 corners. But there is a chief place on earth with the least amount of light and the least amount of water in it. It says, thirsty land, whether no water is. Right? And David also said his heart panted after the water brook. So we want to get that understanding of the Most High, which is really not in this land, man. They don't teach you the laws in this land. They don't teach you anything but homosexuality, violence, and to be a hypocrite against the Most High and be hated in the eyes of the Most High. So this place right here is nothing more than your modern day wilderness. You got it.
Con, I want to bring this up real quick. This from the Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary, going into the definition for tabernacle. This is page 574, right? Tabernacle. It reads, portable sanctuary that served as a place of worship for the Israelites from the time of the wilderness wanderings until the building of the temple by Solomon, typified the Most High dwelling with his people. Jumping down. Let's see. The tabernacle. So I want to jump down. Okay, the tabernacle, which stood at the west end of the court, was a wooden structure 45 by 15 feet, divided by a heavy veil into 2 parts, a holy place and the most holy place. And they're going into the actual tabernacle. I wanted them to go into, just the definition. But like the brother said, you have many prophecies that go into like the tents of Cushan, where in affliction, the tabernacles of so-and-so, and it's speaking about the nation. Right? Let me get that in Habakkuk, the 3rd chapter. Right? This is Habakkuk chapter 3. And I will start at verse. Let's start at leave I want. Bear with me. That's 7, Salakia. I'll start at 6. This is Habakkuk chapter 3 and 6. He stood and measured the earth. He beheld and drove asunder the nations, and the everlasting mountains were scattered. The perpetual hills did bow, his ways are everlasting. Now, Habakkuk saw a vision of Yahushua returning. He saw the same thing that Ezra saw in 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter. That's the same vision that John the Revelator saw in John the 19th chapter. Same thing Isaiah saw in Isaiah the 63rd chapter, the 66th chapter. They all saw the same vision. It's like it wrote it down different ways, right? Verse 7. I saw the tents of Cushan in affliction, and the curtains of the land of Midian did tremble. So the tents of Cushan are the Cushites, right? And it's speaking about their nation, because remember, in the ancient world, everybody dwelt in tents, man. That was the dwelling place. Abraham dwelt in tents. Isaac dwelt in tents, right? Jacob dwelt in tents, man. Our fathers said, we all dwelt in those things. So, we as a people, that's why the Feast of Tabernacles has so many levels to it. There's so many levels to the Feast of Tabernacles. Your body's a tabernacle, right? You have the actual tabernacle you should be mindful of, which is, goes into Yahushua, right? And the things within the tabernacle, right? You're thinking about the nations and their judgments. You're thinking about Yahushua, right? Keeping the feast day, there's a lot to kind of go into, right? But you got it, King.
And it's a real deep high holy day through the spirit. Like the brother touched on, you got the tabernacle of witness and all of the holy things in the tabernacle. We have to image ourselves after moving inwardly as all of the things that were in the temple, man. Right? That's spiritual as well. Right? You got the menorah, you got to be on fire, you have to have the Most High within your members. Right? You got to do the work, you have to have your prayers going up. Right? The tabernacle was spiritual, right? And the priests had to go in and out. Right? You can't have a tabernacle of foolishness and madness and video games and hypocrisy, man, and TV watching. Right? This is the mighty book of Revelation, chapter 21 and verse 1. I saw a new heaven and a new earth. But that's not physically talking about the Lord is going to destroy the land mass of earth, and he has to form a whole new earth. You're going to have a new rulership, right? You have one rulership passing away. You have a new rulership coming into play. It says the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, meaning destroyed their kingdoms, and there was no more sea, meaning the nations. The Lord has utterly wiped out all of the wicked and has preserved a small remnant to be slaves in the kingdom. It says, and I, John, saw the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband, right, Israel. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God. Now I want to take this precept and link it up, right, with this same chapter, jumping to verse 22. And I saw no temple therein, but the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are the temple of it. So how you going to have a tabernacle that's literally going to be with man, but then it just says that there's going to be no temple, right? Because when the Most High dwells with us, his tabernacle and his resting place is going to be with man. We're tabernacles. The Most High is going to physically rest, you understand, through his son Yahushua with us in the kingdom. The Lord said in the book of Ezekiel, let me get this quick precept. It's the book of Ezekiel, right, chapter 43 and verse 7. And he said unto me, son of man, the place of my throne and the place of the soles of my feet, where I will dwell in the midst of the children of Israel forever. So that tabernacle with the Most High, Ba'ashem Yahushua, and with man is going to be where Yahushua dwelling with us. It's not talking about we're all just going to get inside of a physical tabernacle and we're going to all live together in the kingdom. It says, in my holy name shall the house of Israel no more defile, neither shall nor their kings by their whoredom, nor by their carcasses of the kings in their high places. You got it.
Yeah, and I mean the tabernacle, and that's why it's important to read the law, right? We went into Hebrews yesterday, and when you go into the wilderness and you look at that tabernacle, that was a temporary essential residence for the Most High when we were on the go, right? But the Most High, the Lord put the spirit on Solomon to actually build him a temple, right? And like the brother went into And the spirit, the Lord is going to be amongst us as a whole. Now I want to get this precept, right? I want to go to Habakkuk. I mean, it's like a Hebrews, right? This is Hebrews chapter 8 and verse. Let me get Yara down in here. Right. Shalom, King. Can you hear us? I think he's trying to get something situated. All right. Habakkuk, that's like a Hebrews, right? The Spirit want me to read Habakkuk. Hebrews chapter 1 and 1. Hebrews 8 and 1. Now, of the things which we have spoken, this is the sum. We have such an high priest who is set on the right hand of the throne of the majesty in the heavens, a minister of the sanctuary and of the true tabernacle, which the Lord pitched and not man. So another thing about the Feast of Tabernacles, there's a true tabernacle. Remember where Moses made the tabernacle, it was a replica of what he saw in the third heaven, right? The altar, the censer, all these things were a replica of what he saw in the third heaven. It was a pattern of things in the third heaven. So the high priest would go into that tabernacle on the Day of Atonement and make atonement for himself and for the sins of the people. Yahushua went into the true tabernacle. So the true tabernacle is speaking about before the presence of the Most High, right? And then he was offered as a sacrifice, and his blood was sprinkled on the spirits of the saints, right? That's what they're saying when it says a minister of the sanctuary and of the true tabernacle, which the Lord pitched and not man. So you got the man-made tabernacle, you got the Lord-made tabernacle. You got the Levites that went into the one tabernacle on the earth, and then spiritually, Yahushua went into a spiritual tabernacle. Like you said, well, look, I don't know where that is. I can't find it. Well, you're not going to find the first tabernacle because Jeremiah hid it, and the Ark of the Covenant, right? He hid many things. Then you have the spiritual tabernacle that Yahushua went in, that he may be an offering for the people and for the sins of the elect of Israel. And that is the true tabernacle that Yahushua created, right? So, you know, and the Ryan was kind of going into that. It's a pattern of these things in the heavens, right? But you got it, King.
Khan, I got a precept on that. It's the book of Sirach, chapter 24 and verse number 10. He created me from the beginning before the world, and I shall never fail. In the holy tabernacle I served before him, and so was I established in Zion. Talking about wisdom, which is Yahushua, right? This is Sirach deeply going into how Yahushua is the high priest before the foundation of the earth. And he served in the holy tabernacle way before Moses, Aaron, and all the Levitical priesthood had the blueprint on earth. So it's a spiritual tabernacle and a true tabernacle in the third heaven.
Come. And I'm gonna jump down to Hebrews chapter 8 and verse 3. Hebrews 8 and 3. And every high priest is ordained to offer gifts and sacrifices. Wherefore it is of necessity that this man have somewhat also to offer. Right? Because the high priest would offer the bullock and different animals. So Yahushua, him being a high priest, he has to bring an offering, which was his body, right? For if he were on earth, he should not be a priest, seeing that there are priests that offer gifts according to the law. Here's the point. Who serve as an example and shadow of heavenly things. So everything the high priest did, it was a shadow of heavenly things. You have angelic priests, man. Don't you have priests that do offerings, right? With the censer, and they throw it down, and they take the prayers from the 4 and 20 elders and bring it up to the Most High, and the one to take the tongs, and he'll light the coat. So you got these angels that do things in the third heaven, man. The pattern of the priesthood is not an accident. These angels do priestly work in the third heaven before the Most High, right? There's a temple. I mean, the third heaven is deep, based off of what we know, right? It says the Apostle Paul heard or saw unspeakable things, right, which cannot be uttered, man. So the things that he saw, he couldn't even describe them, you know, with words and on earth, right? Let me read that again in Hebrews 8 and 5. Who serve unto the example and shadow of heavenly things. So everything on the earth is just a shadow of the heavenly things. As Moses was admonished of the Most High when he was about to make the tabernacle. For see, saith he, that thou make all things according to the pattern showed to thee in the mount. So Moses got a blueprint. And the dimensions of the tabernacle were essentially the dimensions of what was in the third heaven. Right? So that's how a shadow works. Your shadow isn't 30 feet tall and you're 6 foot, man. Right? Your shadow's the same height. Your shadow's kind of the same width. Right? So everything made on the earth was a shadow of what he saw in the third heaven. That's why there was a throne, right? Or the mercy seat. All of that is in the heavens. So the Feast of Tabernacles, you got to think about the Lord's tabernacle, which the Lord pitched and not man. Right? You got it, King.
And when you read the law, right, all of them making the tabernacle and getting all of the things together, Moses was overlooking everything because he's the one that had the blueprint. It's Exodus chapter 39 and 32. Thus was all the work of the tabernacle of the tent of the congregation finished, and the children of Israel did according to all that the Lord commanded Moses, so did they. Right, so the Most High gave it to Moses through the hand of that holy angel Yahushua. Moses put up the blueprint, and they collectively as a nation had all of the different things. You had certain people bringing up offerings. We read on Exodus, the 25th chapter. When you go into it, people that wanted to willingly offer themselves in Exodus, the 35th chapter, and so on and so forth. It says, and they brought the tabernacle unto Moses, the tent and all his furniture, and the tentrets, and the boards, and the bars, and the pillars, and its sockets, and the coverings of ram skin dyed red, and the coverings of badger skin, and the veil, and the covering, and the ark of the testimony, and the staves thereof, and the mercy seat. Jumping all the way down to verse 43. It says, and Moses did look upon all the work, and behold, they had done it as the Lord had commanded. So he had to make sure, like you have a boss. The boss give you the measurements. Okay, this is what we're going to build today. You give it to all of the workers. All of the workers, they kind of measure it all out. They do the work. And then you have the man, he'll kind of come and see if all of the measurements and all of the architectural work is mapped out as the blueprint has said. And that's what Moses did. It says, and Moses looked upon all the work, and behold, they had done it as the Lord commanded. Even so had they done it, and Moses blessed them. Right? So what do you think the Most High is going to do with all of the things that he has told us to do, man? We have to be perfected. You can't have any leaks. You understand, in your tabernacle, any holes. Right? You're sitting up there, you're throwing and mixing fabrics and all type of things your tabernacles have broken into. Right? You got to make sure that all the dimensions and the things, the fruits of the spirit, being on fire, being diligent, understanding the law, all of these things make up your temple also. But the Most High is going to search you out too. You got it.
Yeah. And what was inside the tabernacle, man? Was it a bunch of garbage? Right? Was it a dump and run? Right? Was it a freak fest? No, you had holy things in the tabernacle. You had really on the deeper level, you had Yahushua. It wasn't a dump and run, man. Right? And a freak fest. Right? The tabernacle had many holy vessels. You had the candlestick, where you had the table with the showbread, right? You had the altar of incense. Then within the veil, right, you had the Ark of the Covenant. Within the Ark of the Covenant, you had what? You had Aaron's rod that budded, the golden pot of manna, the 2 tables of stone, right? You had the cherubims, right? You had the mercy seat, of which we cannot speak particularly, right? They had all of that, man. What's inside of your tabernacle? Do you have Yahushua in your tabernacle? Or are you just a freak fest tabernacle, a dump and run, a garbage dump, right? So you have to examine your tabernacle, right? Let me get this real quick, right? Right? Quick precept. Actually, you got it real quick, King. I got to find this real quick.
I quoted it earlier, but I want to get it. It's the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1 and verse number 4. For into a malicious soul, wisdom shall not enter. So wisdom is going to actually enter into your tabernacle, man. Now, if your tabernacle was full of garbage, robbery, lies, right, wickedness, you think that the Most High Ba'Shem Yahushua is going to continue to dwell in your tabernacle? You have two things. Just like when you read Matthew chapter 12 and verse 43. The Lord tells you, right, the spirit has left you. Other spirits are going to dwell in your tabernacle. So you're either going to have a place that's a damn trap, a trap house, just a kick pad, man. Everybody just coming in there doing God knows what, turning up the music, getting loud, going off, right? Or you can have righteousness, right? All the workings of the Most High, man. It says, go into a malicious soul, wisdom shall not enter, nor dwell in the body that is subject to sin. But the Holy Spirit of discipline will flee the sea and remove from thoughts that are without understanding, and not, so like it will not abide when unrighteousness comes in. You know, the Most High are going to be in a space to where there's wickedness, where there's evil, right? I mean, you can't be thinking that you're going to be on fire one day and the next day you're a hypocrite in the world. The Most High is going to search you out, and the Holy Spirit is going to flee from you. You got it. I got precept out.
Con. This Mark chapter 7 and verse 20. It reads, and he said, that which cometh out of the man, that defileth the man. For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these things come from within and defile the man. So that's how your tabernacle could be defiled, man. Right? Fornication, murder, lasciviousness, an evil eye, pride, foolishness. You can defile your whole tabernacle, man. Right? Now you know you're keeping your Feast of Tabernacles, but now your whole spirit is off. All right, so you got to make sure you are holy internally as you keep the Feast of Tabernacles. All of our forefathers' tabernacles was in righteousness, man. Right? The Most High said adultery. You keep. There was this account, right? I probably told this account maybe two times, maybe three, right? There was a particular group of men. I'll put it like that. They kept the Feast of Tabernacles, and you know, brothers brought their wives out, and they had the families out there. They all had the tents, and you know, they had this different spot where they was going to kind of keep the feast. And you know, it was lovely. The family was out, the kids running around, you know, the men doing their thing, women doing their thing. You know, get to like one of the days in the feast where you know, the brother kind of go to sleep, right? You know, he wake up and he don't see his woman next to him. You know, so he, you know, looking for his woman, kind of get out the tent. You know, maybe she at the bathroom, like rubbing his eyes. You know, maybe, you know, I don't know. Maybe she hanging out with the sister. So he kind of get up early in the morning, right? You know, maybe 5:30 in the morning, and he sees his woman come out. Come out of where? The elders' tent, right? The elders' tent. Now, why is she coming out of his tent during the Feast of Tabernacles? Oh, he was just breaking the scriptures down to me. It's not what it looks like. You know, we was going over Leviticus 23, you know, 8, and then you had madness going. And she said, well, look, you'll never be like him. Right? So that's you know, an account. That's an account. Now, that's adultery going on. Right? That's adultery. So you're keeping the Feast of Tabernacles, but in your tent you got adultery going on. It's a very lewd thing to commit wickedness inside of your tabernacle during the Feast of Tabernacles. That's abominable, man. Right? So brothers got to examine what's in your tabernacle. You got it, King.
Come. I want to bring this out in the book of Matthew, chapter 12, and verse number 43. It says, when the unclean spirit is gone out of man, he walketh through dry places. You may get rid of that spirit through fasting, examination, prayer. There's a plethora of ways to get rid of spirits. Counsel. There are thousands of things that you could do to exercise to remove these demons. And one of the strongest ones is fasting. So after you alleviated yourself and purged out all of the leaven, And these spirits, they walk around dry places. Meaning what? They're all over here. They may be at the grocery store, the gas station, maybe at your grandmother's house, old places you like to be, right? You may be dwelling at your cousin's house, familiar places you used to hang out at, right? He's walking and he's seeking rest. It says, in my house, from whence, lucky, walking through dry places and seek of rest and findeth none. Then said he, I will return into my house. What did he call this man? A house. Because a house is what? It's a dwelling place. A temple was a dwelling place. A tabernacle was a dwelling place. So this, even the spirits know, right? We're the only people that are still thinking that this everything is physical, man. We're a spiritual people. It says, I will return into my house from whence I came out. And when he is come, he findeth it empty, swept, and garnished. You don't want to have a house where the spirit is going to come and he doesn't see the menorah in there. He doesn't see the shewbread, the sacrifices, all of the spiritual things, the shofar, right, on a spiritual level, which make us about and what's in the tabernacle of witness. Because we're priests. You want to have the Most High dwelling in you, Bashem Yahushua, that light, that flame, that fire. If you see from afar off, you could tell if somebody's home. Why? Because the light is going to be on. If you're from afar away, I'm led to believe, at least almost a half a mile, you can see if a light is on. Right? If you may be in an open field and you see a house all the way down the street, you could be able to like, well, somebody's home. That's a house right there. But if you see it empty, blackened out, you may think nobody's dwelling there, nobody's home. And that's how these spirits look at us. They say, well, this man doesn't have a light in him. This man isn't on fire. This man's flame is about to go out. It says, then goeth he and taketh with himself 7 other spirits more wicked than himself. So what actually dwells in you, it isn't just your heart beating in your liver and your lung and your kidneys and just carnal things and just blood and all. No, it's spiritual. You got spirit, you got demons that are living within you. Now you can't say, well, where are they? I mean, open yourself. No, but brother, all of these spirits, they're within, you understand, your body, and they're living within you, man. That's why you're so easily agitated. You're upset. That's why any and everything has you to go to lust, man. You see a woman, a TV show, right? Scrolling on social media, a thought, right? You're easily triggered because these spirits are getting off, right? To attack your vessel at any given moment. When you're on fire, you know when you're on fire. I always like to say, I probably get on people's nerves when I'm on fire. Because, I mean, it's zero folly. Don't come on. It's just, man, let's get it done. Right? If you're not on fire, you may not relate. But when you lax it down, we can let it slide. That's tomorrow. Be making excuses, right? I mean, you don't want to be in that type of spirit. It says, then goeth he and taketh with himself 7 other spirits, more wicked than himself, and they entered in and dwelled there. So the dwelling place of unclean spirits are on the earth. But when they find the host, guess where they're going to dwell? They're going to dwell within you. That's why it's important to purge out all of these spirits, before these feast days. It's good to purge them out all the time, but it's a different spirit you got to be in, you understand, on these feast days. It's beautiful that the Lord gave us the Day of Atonement right before the mighty feast, you understand, of Tabernacles through the Spirit. So Lord willing, everybody atone for their sins, purged out all of that leaven, and remaineth themselves to stay clean until the coming of the Feast of Tabernacles. Well, also we have another Sabbath kicking it off, right? And then ending with a Sabbath. So this is a very high, month through the Spirit that the Lord has the nation in. You got it.
God, and I'm going to get this in Exodus chapter 23 and 14 to add to that, right? Exodus chapter 23 and 14. I'm going to start at 13. And in all things that I have said unto you, be circumspect, and make no mention of the name of other gods, neither let it be heard out of thy mouth. So everything being brought out, you got to be circumspect. You have to see it and be aware of the levels of the Feast of Tabernacles, right? And how to keep it. Reading on, verse 14. 3 times a year thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year. Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded thee, in the time appointed of the month of Abib. For in it thou camest out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. And part of this feast day, you can't appear before the Lord empty, man. Right? Yahushua bring that precept out all the time. Thou shalt not appear before the Lord empty. That's another statute with the Feast of Tabernacles. Yeah, you got your booth, right? You bought your stuff from Walmart, you ordered your stuff online, but you still appear before the Lord empty. Right? Empty with what? Empty in words, right? Empty in faith, right? You're full of slothfulness, but you're empty in zeal, empty in alms, empty in charity. Now, in the ancient world, they physically had to bring these things to offer. What are we offering now? Spiritual sacrifices, right? Offering up the Gentiles, right? Offering up our prayers like incense. And the Lord said to do good and communicate, forget not, for with such sacrifices, the Most High's will please. Hosea 14:2, we're offering the calves of our lips. So we're doing all of these offerings to the Most High. And you have to bring this before Yahushua. You cannot just show up empty, man. Just an empty vessel. Just rubbing your hands, looking to creep in some brother's wife's tent, man. Right? Doing this, bringing that nasty finger back and taking that zipper and trying to unzip the tent, man. Right? Taking that, just flipping, being a menace.
Perfect.
Right? The Most High is not dealing with a menace on a feast week, man. Now you're eating the food, you're flipping over grills, you just being a brute. Right? So you want to make sure that you keep in these feast days and you don't show up empty. Let's read on. Verse 16. And the feast of harvest, this Exodus 23:16. And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of thy labors, which thou hast sown in the field, and the feast of ingathering, which is in the end of the year, when thou hast gathered in thy labors out of the field. So another thing about the Feast of Tabernacles, it's the end of labor. It's the end of work for the year. It's the end of husbandry. It's the end of putting your hand to the plow and now you reap the harvest. Well, that's spiritual, man. That's why it says at the end of the year. It's not the end of your calendar year because it's only the 7th month, right? The last month of the year is Adar. This is the end of the agricultural year. So at the year's end, is no more labor in the vineyard for that time because the winter time is coming in, right? You got to think about it. You got the winter time, so they have to gather in all of their crops to sustain them for the harsh seasons coming in, right? Let me read that again. Exodus 23:16, and the feast of harvest, that's speaking about Pentecost, the first fruits of thy labors, which thou hast sown in the field, and the feast of ingathering, which is in the end of the year, when thou hast gathered in thy labors out of the field. So all of your labors have been gathered. That's the last harvest of the year. So you got to also think about the harvest coming, man. Right? That's why every time during the Feast of Tabernacles, what do you have? A blood moon. It's always they call it a harvest moon. Right? Esau, he called it a harvest moon. And the harvest moon is the longest moon of the year, meaning it's in the nighttime in the sky for the longest. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up, but it's a blood moon, and it's the darkest. I mean, it's the moon is shedding light for the longest duration of time than any other moon, because the Most High gave us that bright harvest moon so we could see and gather in all of those crops, right? And it would keep the wild beasts away too, right? So you would be able to out there to do the harvest and gather in your labors out of the field. Yahushua is going to gather in his labors out of the field, right? And render unto every man according to his works, man. Right? So you got to think about the harvest is coming too. So, brothers, God, I'm going to find this out about this moon. Right? Let me get this real quick.
You bring out Nehemiah 8. Okay, Khan, that's probably lengthy. If you got some yard down, you got it.
Khan.
Let's see.
I got something through the
All right, this real quick.
Okay, Khan.
With the harvest moon. So what is the harvest moon? And you can kind of look this up on your own, right? What is the harvest moon? It reads, the harvest moon appears from September 28th through the 30th. The moon will appear full for about 3 days around this time, from Thursday through Saturday. Why does this phenomenon happen? Right? It says, this year, the brilliant harvest moon first appears in the evening of Thursday. That's how you know the Feast of Tabernacles on the right day, man. Right? Because the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles is the first day of the harvest moon. Right? It reads, first appears in the evening of Thursday, September 28th, before reaching peak illumination at 5:58 a.m. on Friday. One thing that sets the harvest moon apart from other full moons is that it's not associated with a specific month, right? Bear with me. I'm going to kind of jump down. Okay, why is it called the harvest moon? Here's the point. For several evenings, the moon rise comes sooner after sunset. This results in an abundance of bright moonlight early in the evening, which was a traditional aid to farmers and crews harvesting their summer-grown crops. Hence, it's called the harvest moon, right? Usually throughout the year, the moon rises an average of 50 minutes later each day. But for a few nights around the harvest moon, the moon seems to rise at nearly the same time, just 25 to 30 minutes later, right? So that moon is rising early, right? And it's a sign of the harvest. When that moon came up, our forefathers said, oh, this is, okay, it's time. It's the Feast of Tabernacles. And they was gathering the increase of their field, right? So they could have those days. Because if the Most High blessed your increase, you can't just get it in one day. And you need that day and night to gather all that in, and you would rejoice before Yahuwah Ba'Shem Yahushua. And Yahushua is coming to do a harvest, man. Right? He's coming to gather in the wheat. He's going to do something with the tares, which is bind them up and burn them. You got it, King.
Everybody get Nehemiah?
Khan, if you got something, you got it, but I was going to get that after.
Khan, I was just going to get Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, touching on the tabernacle. But I'll wait a bit. I'll let you get your thing.
Okay, Khan. It's the book of Nehemiah, chapter 8, in verse number 13, and it reads, and on the second day were gathered together the chief of the fathers of all the people, the priests and the Levites, unto Ezra the scribe, even to understand the words of the law. And they found written in the law, which the Lord had commanded by Moses, that the children of Israel should dwell in booths in the feast of the 7th month, and they should publish and proclaim in all their cities and in Jerusalem, saying, go forth unto the month and fetch olive branches and pine branches and myrtle trees and palm trees and branches and thick trees and make booths as it is written. Right? So, I mean, brothers want to touch on it too, they can. But in the ancient world, man, they had to physically get down with their hands, man. It wasn't no going to Walmart. Jake has a lot of luxuries right now. They you know, they could just go, it's hot in here. Then they just go to the thermostat and they just flick their finger until they feel cool, man. They didn't have those type of things in the ancient world. They had to physically grab these trees, chop them down, right? They had to take them, they had to wrap them around. These men were actual builders, architects, right? These men were actual men. Right now, women just think, man, oh, he could change an oil change, or he knows how to change a flat tire. No, our fathers were really out in the wilderness, man. They lived in the wilderness. They were really outside. It says, so the people went forth and brought them and made themselves booths. So like the brother was touching on earlier, man, you have families. And you have some large families in Israel, man. Maybe you have 10, you understand, wives, whatever the case may be. You may have 3 daughters, 4 to 12 sons. Right, you had to take that and you had to build a large tabernacle. It wasn't just a very small one. You stand up in like this, man. You just lay down in. Right, they were actually building those things, right, and they were stretching them out. Right, did you pull up some tents?
Yeah, I showed some earlier. I got one right here.
All praise to the Most
What's
High.
up?
Yeah, so they had tents in the ancient world, man. And those, there you go, right? Now these tent, look at how big that tent is, right? That tent can at least, fit 50 people, if not more, maybe 100. That's the tent of Kedar.
It don't say.
Okay, come.
Okay.
Right, but look at these tents. So that was beautiful the way our forefathers were, constructing these tents and bringing them together. Right? Reading on. It says, so the people went forth and brought them and made themselves booths, every one upon the roof of his house, and in their courts, and in the courts of the house of God, and in the street of the water gate, and in the street of the gate of Ephraim. So they were making all of these different tents all in the streets. So you had all of your fathers sitting up there working in the streets, getting all of the tents together, man. As it is written, it says this, and all the congregation of them that will come out of the captivity made booths and sat under the booths. For since the day of Joshua the son of Nun, until that day had not the children of Israel done so, and there was a very great gladness. So it's a beautiful thing when you set up your tent. It's a beautiful thing when you get all your materials, or you may have a packing bag, a list. You get your family together. You're finally out in the wild through the spirit and power of the Most High. You're sitting up there. You're in tune with the elements. You're meditating outside. You're going over the scriptures. You're outside with the Akim and the Aqua. You may have a fire, whatever case may be. You may sit down and discuss wisdom, counsel, go over precepts, set up night watches. It's a beautiful thing to congregate with the nation. You got
God.
God.
It's saying Sirach 7:15, hate not laborer's work, and your love is shown during the Feast of Tabernacles, because you actually have to do some laborer's work, which is building a tent. And it's not laborious in a bad way, but it's something that you should love, because you're rehearsing the righteous acts of your forefathers. And so it says in Jonah chapter 4, verse 5, so Jonah went out of the city and sat on the east side of the city, and there made him a booth, and sat under it in the shadow till he might see what would become of the city. Nevertheless, we find Jonah, our forefather, just making a booth, just naturally. Now, there's no telling how elaborate it was, but he made it. Jake don't even want to put together something they bought from IKEA. They want to hire somebody to do it.
It's awful.
As a man in the truth, you should want to learn how to build things and put things together. The Lord put things together. The Lord is the architect. The Lord built booths. So why not you? And so it also says in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul and with all thy might. And you building this tent, building this booth, decking it out, right, in righteousness. Hey, that's you loving the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. So it takes a lot of dedication to build up a booth and to make sure it's well structured. Because even on another level, as structured as your booth is, that kind of reflects your spirit and your mind. Because if your booth is just sloppy, is messy, there's no steady foundation, and there's no pillar in the middle, I mean, that's you. You're sloppy. You have no pillar. You're unorganized. And as your tent falls, so shall you.
Damn.
So it's many folds to look at this. Deuteronomy, it's like this is Job 27:18. He buildeth his house as a moth and as a booth that the keeper maketh. I don't know if that's exactly what I wanted, but we see booths, and our forefathers mentioned it a lot because it was in our nature to know how to build it. It should be in your nature, and not just for the Feast of Tabernacles. I mean, if you have the opportunity and you have a backyard, there's nothing that should be stopping you from dwelling in your booth. In fact, it can be humbling, and it may even further put you in the spirit of your forefathers and foremothers. and dwelling in an ancient world, sometimes we can get corrupted by by the vanities of this world. Your TV, Jake come home, kick off their boots. They don't hug and kiss their wife. They just jump straight on the couch and turn on the game and rub their stomach. That was a long day. And he's screaming. He's screaming to his wife from the kitchen. What's for dinner? What's for eats? No, you got to get in the spirit of your righteous forefathers. You know, you have to really be diligent and look over the house, you know, and pretty much things of that nature. And building things, even at the tabernacle, I mean, that's beautiful, especially if you build it for your house. Damn, that's a privilege. That's a privilege. And how much more, you know, dedication should it take to make it perfect? Because if that tabernacle fall, it's falling upon your kids too, and your wife. And again, this can represent you. But with that, I yield.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, man. I wanted to bring this out in the book of Acts, the 18th chapter, to kind of add to that. Right? This is Acts chapter 18 and verse 3. And because this is Paul, Aquila, and Priscilla. And because he was at the same craft, he abode with them and wrought, for by their occupation, they were tent makers. And really, your occupation tells a lot about your spirit, man. Right? You know, people that are into particular things, their spirit attracts them to do those things. So if you're a tent maker, you know, that's like a practical skill or craft to help you teach and build up your people. So Paul was a wise master builder on a spiritual level, as he knew how to build the people up and take his time and, you know, being patient. And when you're putting a tent together, you got to be patient, man. Right? Like Yaradon said, this is how you build up your household and build up your people. So when you put that tent, if you rushing, you're getting frustrated, you know, you'll be an unprofitable servant. Right? But if you take your time, you can build your tent, right? And like we were going into earlier, you know, it's holy vessels inside, Holy Spirits. That's exactly how you're going to build up and teach your people. So that's why Paul was a wise master builder, because he dealt his whole life. His side business, for lack of better terms, was he built tents from the ground up. He didn't buy them from Dick's Sporting Goods and Walmart. He built them from the ground up. You know, and that's a beautiful craft to have, and it teaches you how to, you know, methodically build up and teach your people. Like people that deal with carpentry, like Yahushua's father was a carpenter. You know, certain men have crafts that help them kind of put things into perspective and be hands-on. You know, so I want to bring that out too.
Let me bring this out. It's the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse, right? I'm going to start at number 9. For we are laborers together with Yahweh. We are God's husbandry. We are God's building. According to the grace of God, which is given unto me as a wise master builder, I have laid the foundation, and another buildeth thereon. But let every man take heed how he buildeth thereupon. You don't want to treat this truth like you do your job. You come in late, you leave early, you duck off, right? You take more breaks than you should, right? You're treating it like you don't want to be there. All you're worried about is just the money at the end of the day. And all you think you're worried about is the kingdom, but look at the amount of work that you're putting in. Look at the amount of time and all of the things that you're bringing forth. You understand? And the Most High is doing the Most High's work, man. This is work. And the Lord likens work into a what? A vineyard. What do you do in a vineyard? Do you have fun in the vineyard? Right? Do you just play football and basketball? No, you work in the vineyard. There's nothing around other than a damn javelin tool, something to get it in and break up the dirt, man. If you're not doing that, you're just standing around, getting smitten by the sun. There's only one thing to do out in the vineyard. It's work. It's nothing else, right? Whether you're a plant, right, it's nothing else to do but to grow. Or you're either going to work or you're going to be seen as not working. There's only two options. So in the Most High's vineyard, he has hired you to do the work of the Most High. You got weeds in the vineyard, strange fruit in the vineyard, right? You got all the type of doleful creatures, right? Trying to tread down the grapes. Like it's saying, Wisdom of Solomon, it's like a Song of Solomon, the 2nd chapter, right? And all of these different things, you have to watch how you build it. It says, for another foundation can no man lay, then that, Salakia, lay, that is laid, which is Yahushua. Now, if any man build upon his foundation, gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, stubble. So you could build, but what are you building and what tools are you using, man? Are you using clay? Are you using something easy? Are you just grabbing up dirt and smushing it all together and slime and mortar and miry clay? What are you building with, man? What are you taking your time and what are you doing? Because if you're going to take your time and build something, at the end, your work is going to be literally manifested by how much you care about your craft. You may have somebody's building a chair, right? They may be adding on an addition to their house. They may be doing a lot of things. Now, some projects, they actually take, man, 4 months, a year. It take a very long time because certain things you just cannot rush. Brother, if you got a leak in your house, a problem in your marriage, things you need to build on yourself, stop thinking it's going to be a quick fix. Stop thinking that one fast or that one prayer or that one counsel may suffice, man. It may have to be more work, more diligence, right? They don't just build up additions to homes, patios, balconies, decks, and all of these different things in a matter of seconds, man. It takes time. And it also takes help, right? Every man can't build everything by himself. You need a brother to help you sometimes, man. Right? They got those fixer-upper shows. I don't know any names of them, but they come in, then they have somebody, this is what I want to do to my house. They look here, they look there. They have a team storming of men, and they come in and they help build, man. What do you think the nation is for? What do you think a congregation is for? What do you think your house is for, man? Utilize your husband. Utilize your friends and your brothers in Akwaf and Akim in this truth, man. And make sure that everybody's strategically coming together to help one another. It says in verse 13, every man's work shall be made manifest. So you can only hide what you're doing for so long because the Lord's going to rip off that sheet where you've been working since you came into this truth. And in the day of Yahushua, it's going to literally shine bright. And you're going to have to see all of the things you've been doing. Look at all of the counsels you may have rushed or never got on, man. All the times you closed the Bible to do God knows what. And all of the things that you could have built up your body and your tabernacle with, you didn't spend the time to do. It says, and for that day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire, and the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. Meaning that whatever you built is going to have to last through the fire. And if it's not last through the fire, I mean, what are you doing? You may build something carnally and then the rain take it down. Or it's windy and then it blows it right off. When you fasten that thing down upon what? The foundation. What's the foundation? Yahushua. That's why it's going to be tried through the fire. Because like even in a carnal tent, you take those little things and you knock them in the four corners so that your tent doesn't move. What is that called? A foundation. If your tent doesn't have a carnal foundation, then the wind is going to blow. Rain is going to come. Right? You may be moving around in your tent. You may actually hit one of the little things on it, and now it's all lopsided. It has to be fastened down. You understand? Within that foundation. What you got, King?
That's right. I was gonna land me back off that. If you call yourself a shepherd, then surely you should help out your brothers that are building a tent too. Because not everybody's gonna be like the other. You know, everybody has a certain talent, and other brothers may need help. You know, especially if it's their first tabernacles, Feast of Tabernacles. So this is Matthew 5:41. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. Give to him that asketh thee, and from him that will borrow of thee, turn not thou away. So if you see a brother, hey, can you help me? You know, and it's Feast of Tabernacles, and you say, nah, Sirach 27:3. It's all on you, Ak. The ball is in your court. If it falls, then it falls. You should want to help out that brother. You know, even Jacob built a booth for his cattle. So you should work. It's another beautiful opportunity and time to be a brother's keeper. You shouldn't want to hear tents falling at night and brothers screaming, "Ah, help! Help! My tent fell!" You shouldn't want to hear that in your bed and you just smile. Should have known better. Should have watched that. Should have watched that Monday Night Fire. Tried to tell him. No, you got to help out your brother. Help out your brother. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You can be a brother's keeper in this thing. It's Genesis 33 and 17. And Jacob journeyed to Succoth and built him an house. So Jacob knew how to build a house. He made a house. It's deep. Jake, you don't know how to put together a nightstand. You don't know how to put together a couch. You don't know how to hold a pencil. Jake, you don't even know how to turn on your phone. Hey, Jacob built a house that's deep and made booths. Not only did he build his house, but he made booths for his cattle. Therefore, the name of the place is called Succoth. Wadalaf, because it's tents. Tents is the loth, if I'm not mistaken, in the Hebrew. So he made some loths. He took the wawa, which is the peg, kind of did his thing.
Bayath. Kind of Bayath. You on mute, King?
He kind of took the pegs and kind of just put it in the bayath. Hey, guess what? Hey, you don't think he enjoyed the fruits of his labor? It's nothing more satisfying. But that's why the Lord teaches us many lessons. That's why the Lord tells us to be laborers, because ultimately it's fulfilling. You feel satisfied once you see something accomplished. Then the Lord rests, not physically, but then the Lord rests after 7 days. You don't think he looked at his creation and was like, this is beautiful. So show you, even when you build your tent, you kind of just, all praises. I did that. That was mighty. All praises through the Spirit. And then, keep doing your thing through the Spirit. Maybe help out the next brother. Maybe deck out the tent. Maybe make sure you got everything. With that, I yield.
The brothers have anything else you want to bring out? We can bring out brothers got closing precepts.
Most are willing, the nation takes heed to what brothers are bringing out through the Spirit, and plan ahead of time. Make sure you're getting everything you need right now. You don't want to be because just like Jake, man, they wait to the last minute and everything just crumbles down in a matter of seconds, and now things are all over the place. Like Yardan was bringing out, it's going to be a reflection of your spirit, right? It's the book of Revelation, right? Chapter 3 and verse 2. It says, be watchful and strengthen the things which remain that are ready to die, for I have not found thy works perfect before God. Right? So everybody has something to work on, right? Even the righteous. Everybody has a work that they have to work on. Just like no matter how long a house is going to stay, it's always going to be a problem. It could be the smallest problem. A house could be perfect, but guess what? The light's going to eventually go out from time to time. Huh? Certain things have to be improved, right? I mean, even in your righteous estate, in your mindset, there's still something to work on. It says, remember therefore how thou hast received and heard, and hold fast and repent. If therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come unto thee as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I will come upon thee. So continue to watch, remain diligent, keep the commandments and the faith, and most high willing, right? Get prepared spiritually for the Feast of Tabernacles.
Sirach 35 and 4. Thou shalt not appear empty before the Lord, for all these things are to be done because of the commandment. And so you bringing your tabernacle, you bringing your equipment, literally, you bringing these physical items and necessities to build up your booth, that's you presenting something before the Lord, right? You're showing him that you love him so much that you want to rehearse the righteous acts and keep the commandments. And again, your love will be made manifest through your works. And so if you have a mighty tabernacle And not only, this doesn't only apply for the Feast of Tabernacles. This applies for the Day of Atonement. This applies for Passover. This applies for every high holy day and any other holy day, and the days outside the holy days, which will be every day, right? This verse applies to every single day. How often are you going to bring something before the Lord, whether it be alms, charity, reading, studying, praying, fasting, helping out your brother, self-examination, meditation, etc.? What things are you gathering in his world, in his field, I should say, right? What things are you gathering in righteousness before the Lord? You don't want to gather the wicked things of this world and present it before the Lord. Well, Lord, I know how to smoke now. Lord, I know how to pick up this gun. You taught me how to, you said fight. You said, you taught my fist to fight. I got my sword now. Hold up. You don't want to bring the offerings of Cain, but you should rather bring the offerings of Abel, because they were found just and acceptable before the Heavenly Father. So make sure you do everything you can to bring the just, beautiful sacrifices. Make sure your hands are full with works that I yield.
Khan, I want to get Revelation chapter 22 and 12. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me to give every man according as his work shall be. So there's a lot, there's layers and levels to the feast day. It's beyond, just going camping, packing a tent up, going out in the highways and byways. There's spiritual meanings, like we brought out earlier. Lord, open our eyes so we may behold wondrous things out of thy law. And you want to kind of dive into every layer of the Feast of Tabernacles. Make sure that your spirit is right. Make sure you dwell on Yahweh Bashmi Yahushua. Make sure that you have your tabernacle clean inside, clean on the outside. Make sure you are clean on the inside, right? Through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashmi Yahushua. And be mindful that also that there's a greater tabernacle or greater dwelling place that the Most High has in store for you. An immortal body, a permanent body. And the Most High take you out this temporary tabernacle that can get blown away like the dust in the night, man. Right? So as we work and labor in the vineyard, be mindful that the reward is to be moved from this temporary tabernacle subject to sin, pain, death, and temptation and wickedness. You'll be put in that immortal, permanent dwelling place, in the kingdom of heaven, like our fathers in the wilderness. Right? But with that, we're going to close up, giving, of course, our honor and our glory to Yahweh. By Shema Mashiach Kumalak Yabushai, Brother Naquan.
Brother Right.
Brother Yardan, Shalom.
Kwam Yashala. Oh, Slaki, we'll take questions, right? We'll take questions, right? Like we always do. The number's posted 213-603-9096, right? 213-603-9096. And the PIN number is 94809-305, right? You should see it in the live chat. It's posted. Kwam Yashala. Shalom.